Hello there guys, what is going on? Daniel Childs back here again. It's Tuesday, hope you are doing well. 14th of November, we're going to be going through some of the Chelsea news in today's show. We are into the first week of the international break, which is the worst part of it. Once we get to this time next week, we're starting to feel good about Chelsea returning, but have to get through the slog of the final international break of this year, the last one till March. So if you look at it like that, only one more of these in 2023, and then we've got quite a lot of club football to get through the bulk of the season. So that's why I always enjoy getting this one out the way, because then it's just pure Chelsea, which last year wasn't great, but hopefully this year is a lot more positive as we head into the festive season. In today's news show, we're going to be looking at Victor Osimhen. We're going to be looking at also some of the international break news so far, positive and negative. If you are new around here, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Please do, if you are listening on the podcast feed, share it around. Please do give us a positive rating review. Really helps out. Another show-related thing, this Thursday, I'm going to be heading up to Anfield for the Football Content Awards. I want to say a massive thank you to all of those who helped nominate Son of Chelsea in the category of Best Premier League Club Content Creator. Whether we win or not, I think it's just a privilege to be able to actually be nominated. But we want to bring some silverware back from Liverpool. That'd be kind of quite symbolic, quite ironic, and I'd quite enjoy that. So hopefully that will be the case, and I'll update you on what happened over the week. But let's start off with Victor Osimhen. So a name that has constantly been linked to Chelsea in terms of striker targets. We've consistently heard Chelsea's pursuit or interest. Pochettino has kind of hinted at it publicly in a press conference that Chelsea are looking in the forward attacking position over the January window. Despite all the money that's been spent in that area, apparently Chelsea still want to recruit in that area. And there are some people who I'm sure watching this, listening to this or not, who still believe that Chelsea need to buy a number 9. We'll get into whether they do or not, but this is the story from Nazar Kinsella from The Standard. Chelsea are confident Osimhen would be keen to join amid Ivan Toney and Antonio Nusa interest. The Blues have been encouraged that the 24-year-old would be keen on a move to Stamford Bridge. He has described Chelsea legend Didier Drogba as one of his football idols and likes the idea of playing in the Premier League. But Napoli value Osimhen at well over £100 million, and their president Aurelio De Laurentiis is a notoriously tough negotiator, is unlikely to sell him in January. Now, we did have Mikel kind of trying to stir things up with his new podcast. He had Victor Osimhen on. I mean, he's had some incredible guests, as you'd probably expect for someone of a stature and playing career of Mikel. But he's had this new podcast. He's had JT on, he's had Frank on, and now he's had Victor Osimhen on. And this is what he had to say to try and convince Osimhen and kind of broker that deal potentially for 2024 for Osimhen to become a Chelsea player.
Anybody with that figure, that stature, that personality, and someone who can score goals in big games, and somebody who we can depend on scoring goals. And I just feel like you are that person. You will fit right in at what we need to achieve at the club, because we're crying out for someone who will get us goals, and I think that's what you will give us. So I personally think,
I hope can wait.
Yeah. Saudi can wait. Give us 2-3 years at Chelsea or 4 years, and then maybe Saudi can happen. But yeah, Chelsea next season. I hope you come at the club. It's amazing. Obviously to live in London. We don't have the best weather, but everything else is amazing. Trust me. The club, people at the club, the training ground, everything is absolutely amazing.
You sound like the owner of the football club making a pitch to Victor. You pick whoever you want to pick, Victor.
So quite lighthearted. Whenever I hear stuff about, and I think there are recent evidence that kind of shows you that getting overexcited about a player's links or past links or favouring Chelsea. Osimhen said he has friends that are Chelsea fans. Whether that does not mean, that's not very relevant to me in terms of whether he becomes a Chelsea player or not. What's relevant in terms of whether both clubs could find a fee that's good for both parties. Would the player want to move? I think that'd be another question. I think it seems like he would be willing to move to the Premier League. He's had quite a few years at Napoli, and maybe there was a sense as well that last summer could have been the time to move. But Napoli are one of the most difficult clubs to deal with. Chelsea and many other European clubs know this, but I do think that 2024 will be the year that Osimhen moves somewhere. Whether it's Chelsea or not is of course a big question. But then again, if it even January is still unlikely, despite all the business that Chelsea did last January. We have to take into consideration a lot of that business were for players for the future, really. Players who were more likely to move. And sure, Enzo Fernandez is the one you can point to. That was a massive fee and a massive move in January, but Benfica, Napoli. I think Napoli and De Laurentiis have to be factored in here as such a massive sticking point. And the fact is, Osimhen's goals are, a valuable commodity, as Chelsea should know more than any. And to let a striker go midway through the season can be very costly for a team, and why probably it's more likely he moves next summer, which then I think brings Ivan Toney back into the conversation as a potential January buy for Chelsea. But 6 goals in 8 games so far this season. There's no denying the player's quality. He's a real dominant presence up there, and he quite clearly knows where the back of the net is. My big concern is A, what we've seen from strikers before at Chelsea with big fees, but then also just giving the players that we've invested in time to mould and develop. We don't know over the course of the season whether Nkunku could play a centre-forward role, even if we think of him as a 10 maybe, or a player who can play in a variety of positions. But I just want to bring this up. Nicholas Jackson has 6 goals, 6 Premier League goals so far this season. That is the same number of Serie A goals. And a lot of people dismiss Serie A. So if we're saying that you value Premier League goals higher than you do Serie A goals, well, Nicholas Jackson has 6. He scored 3 against Tottenham. He scored 1 against Manchester City. And there wasn't a lot of hype for him over the summer. There wasn't high expectations that he was going to be this massive transformative player. I've been critical of him. I don't think of course he's not the finished article. I think there are parts of his game that need to be developed. But when you throw in context, which is the key thing here, one of them being that Nkunku got injured on the eve of the season, and I do think if Nkunku was fit, a lot of the pressure on Jackson would have been alleviated so far this season. But then also how young he is, how raw he is. To expect him to operate at a level where he's the finished article is just, it's disingenuous if you're approaching him like that, and it's also just unfair. But I think, given all of that, and given that he's 1 goal off of, he's matched now Timo Werner's Premier League output for his first season, and he's 1 away now from matching Kai Havertz's Premier League tally for last season. It puts into perspective how Jackson's doing, even if there are, of course, ways for him to improve, and not that there haven't been any frustrating days for him in front of goal. But I think we all knew that when we signed him over the summer, that you were going to have to give him some patience. So I still feel that my personal position is I think it's just a little bit more interesting to watch Jackson develop. And with Nkunku returning, I think that's going to have a great benefit to him personally, the way those two players can link up, but then also the rest of the attack. And when you see players like Cole Palmer producing, Raheem Sterling's been chipping in with the goals, and if Reece can stay fit, we know he can produce as well. I just feel with all of that tied in, maybe we'll be in a position where more people are going to be desperate for Chelsea to sign someone in January. I would say that my personal position and what I actually think Chelsea are going to do, I think it's very likely Chelsea sign someone again in January, because that's what Chelsea do. That's what this ownership does. And I think Pochettino, as a coach who knows getting Chelsea back into the Champions League or getting Chelsea back close to the top of the Premier League is of high priority in the short and long term, will want to have someone who can give him those goals very quickly. So that's always going to be the struggle. It's whether Chelsea, with Toney or with Osimhen, can structure a deal in January. I just can't see it happening with Osimhen in January. I just personally can't, because Napoli are such a tough team to negotiate with, and I don't think they would part with him midway through the season when they know that next summer there's going to be more suitors probably. It's the summer. It's a more favourable time for the selling club and the buying club probably to do it. So I think that's when he will move. Let me know your thoughts on this story in the comments below. Going to move on to some international news here before we wrap up the show. So the good news is Cole Palmer has been called up to the England senior team. We've had, of course, it's kind of off the back of some injury news and players pulling out, which we will get to in the second part of this, England international or just international break story. But it's great for Cole Palmer. It's obvious he needs to be called up. He's been playing brilliantly for Chelsea at a high level. So the second part of this is to do with Levi, Colwill and Malo. Both have returned to Cobham. Malo has withdrawn from the France squad after an MRI revealed a small injury to the medial lateral ligament in his right knee. And Levi, it seems like once again a precaution over an injury that kept him out against Manchester City. Levi is a little bit more uncertain. Pochettino didn't give much in his post-match press conference, and his answer didn't make it sound that great, but reports since have kind of suggested that it's a shoulder problem and it's kind of a precaution, which you hope it would be. In the case of Malo, we see Gusto as kind of this competent, safe backup to Reece James now, and the idea that he's getting an injury with Reece's injury problems and Reece hasn't gone on international duty over fitness concerns too to try and maintain this recovery. It's not the greatest situation. I mean, compared to some other teams, Chelsea's injury situation, touchwood, seems to be improving slightly. How long that lasts for, especially with an international break and players going all across the world, we'll wait to see. But I think all of this leads into just my general problem with just the insane amount of football there is over the course of a calendar year. Now, it feels like since the pandemic, where we had such a congested schedule, that's only kind of continued. And Chicago Dimitri, I'm sure a lot of you follow him on Twitter. He's a great Chelsea account. Kind of brought this up, and I think he made such a great point regarding it, is that there's just too much football. The calendar's ridiculous. I think we have too many international friendlies, pointless ones, that don't tell us anything, really. I know that comes from an England perspective, but I think it's probably the same for other nations too, is I just don't think I see so many of those games and I'm like, did this game really tell us anything more? Especially when they are lopsided games as well. Even some of the qualifiers, that's another tangent about qualifying campaigns just being so weighted in certain nations, and they created the Nations League, which sure does allow for that level of competitiveness, but it's just extra football in the calendar, when I think the football in the calendar needs to be taken out a little bit more. We need a leaner schedule, not a fatter one, and that's one that unfortunately just seems to be getting worse and worse. And I think the repercussions are, you get a certain type of fan who responds kind of in anger, going, these footballers are paid so much, ridiculous amounts, without comprehending that these are still human beings who will break down. And actually, the knock-on effect is that for fans, the experience of watching football actually deteriorates because players break down more. You don't see the level of quality, freshness, intensity that you'd maybe want to from some of the best footballers in the world. I think it actually hurts the game in the long term. That's my view. And it's just a deep concern that isn't just a Chelsea-specific one, but will be seen not only across the Premier League, but across, I think, the world over this international break. Just watching games and seeing so many players pull up and seeing so many players pull out of international duty, I think tells you a lot about the current situation. And but will FIFA, will UEFA, will anyone do anything about it? No, because it makes money, and that's just the reality. So those are my thoughts today. Let me know yours in the comments below. Follow me across the socials at SonOfChelsea. You can check out my appearance on the 90 Min review show. I was on there on Monday talking about Chelsea, all of that good stuff. And we'll be back later in the week, probably a breakdown. I want to do another breakdown episode looking at Conor Gallagher, Cole Palmer, tactically what Chelsea did so well against Manchester City and kind of how Chelsea are improving. And probably we'll do a Q&A over this international break as well, maybe a collab or two. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I will see you again very soon. All the best.